All right, I'm recording. Warren, it's all you. I see Giebert, Potter, Urban.
Can you hear me?
I can. I'm trying to find Dan Ramsey. Dan, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
I got logged out.
Oh. And Sue Pullman was here, but now I can't find her either.
Yep, she's there. I could
I'm
see
here.
her.
Okay, so that's 5, and we're missing Bachhuber and Berger.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't have any video.
You go on the lower bar and does a little video pop up.
No, I think I lost the whole thing. The only thing that comes up is sick of the 40-minute time limit. Do I have to log back in?
Shouldn't have to. We can see you.
Yeah. Warren, if you hover over the bottom bar of the Zoom window, it doesn't give you a mute option and a.
No, I'm not even in there. I'm not into the Zoom thing at all. Somehow I think I better just log back in again.
I see you, Warren.
Yeah, but I can't see anything.
That's okay.
I could just leave then.
No.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to log back in, I think, because I can't do anything with this way.
This all looks different this week. I don't know why. Has the software changed?
Not as far as I know. But you can all see my screen, Ken, with the agenda showing.
See the agenda, yeah.
Yeah, now I'm okay.
Okay, good.
All right.
I don't know what I did. So first item of business then is approval of the minutes from last time. Need a motion for that.
I'll move it.
And a second.
I'll second.
All in favor of approval?
Hi.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. And the first item of business is the Tribeca stormwater basin.
Yeah, so we discussed this last month. We asked Sarah to come back with a revised design and amongst some other things. She has done that. And Sarah, I think you can take it away. And I'll have some more comments when she's finished.
Okay. So we took the feedback we heard from the committee last month and we addressed it. We also took staff's concerns as well. Some of those concerns were there was the minor increase in Pheasant Branch from rerouting the offsite water to the south past Century and then ultimately to the Pheasant Branch. So what we did is we doubled the size of the proposed infiltration basin. We changed some of the outlet structure. We went from a 24-inch to an 18-inch. This allowed us to hold back more water in this infiltration basin while it routes itself through the existing wet ponds between Bergstrom and Middleton Ford. And with that, I know Eric had some concerns that this was going to adversely impact the existing wet ponds. By doubling the size of this infiltration basin, we were able to lower the 100-year elevation to within a quarter foot of what it was in the 2012 approved plan. And also with this, by doubling the infiltration basin, we are able to get the 100-year post-development flow rate well below the 100-year pre-settlement flow rate. I don't know, do you have a plan, Eric, that we can share? I know Rich had some
sorry, Sarah.
comments. What we're looking to do, one of Rich's concerns was access to parts of the basin and ultimately some of the storm sewer that will need to be shut back. So we have an option out there we're working through, and we'll be in touch with Rich, is adjusting that property line such that gives more access, or I guess maneuverability is probably a better word, to that structure along Highway 12. And I don't know if I covered everything, or if anyone has any more questions. I definitely can do my best to answer those.
Our last meeting, Sarah, you talked about figuring out the costs of directing the water to Graber Pond versus this alternative.
Right.
And I have a
So-
question. What happens right now to the water?
From offsite.
Yes, from the land west of the belt line.
So
Where's it
when
go?
Cardinal View Senior Living went in, we created a temporary detention basin and stubbed storm sewer from Tribeca Drive, knowing that there's probably 10 acres undeveloped. So in the interim, it's currently in a temporary detention basin that then outlets to Tribeca.
And that's working okay?
Yeah, I haven't heard of any complaints out there.
Why couldn't we make that permanent?
That I believe that's developable land that the developer doesn't want to utilize right there. And then as the rest of Tribeca develops, we won't have capacity in storm sewer to do that.
So were you going to provide a cost estimate for going directly to Graber Pond instead of this alternative?
One was done probably a year ago, I believe, that showed a cost estimate, whether it was, piping. I don't know if that was shared with Eric. I know Eric met with the developers and Mike Davis, and maybe Eric knows a little more about that conversation.
Sorry. Yeah, we met with the developer and Veerbecker staff a couple of weeks ago. I never did see that original estimate, but I think things have changed a little bit. And that this may have kind of gotten lost in translation, but the estimate that Sarah has given us, they have agreed in principle to pay for the conveyance with the city paying for the pond. Just kind of back of the napkin, it's roughly the same length of pipe that would be needed to route it south to this basin or north and then east towards Graber and around the rest of Tribeca. I think if you guys want to make the recommendation that you think it should be tied to the cost that they would have borne if this diversion was not being considered, you can certainly do that. I don't know if it's going to be all that much different from what you're looking at now. These numbers are still being, kind of parsed out and talked about and negotiated between staff and the developer. I made comments on them. I don't think they've been responded to yet.
So the cost then is $558,000.
Yes, and there's roughly 214 that they've allocated to the conveyance and 271 that they've allocated to the pond itself. There are also property acquisition costs that the city would bear, which aren't shown here. And then there's a potential for a grant from Dane County that could theoretically pay for half of this. Alder Ramsey had asked for funding source. I believe it's Mike Davis's preference to use TIF dollars to pay for this project. The other thing hanging out there, Steve Gaffield had come to us last month and said that if Sarah doubled the pond size, it should take care of the flood rise that he was getting in Pheasant Branch. Steve has not had time to turn this around, but Sarah did double the pond size, so hopefully that issue is taken care of. I contacted attorney Larry Beckler to get his opinion on whether or not we even needed to worry about a flood rise. And he has not yet given me his opinion on that. So I'm satisfied with what they've done, Warren. I think they've done what we asked. There's several details still kind of hanging out there, but I
So the
think
city is be responsible then for how much of that they're gonna be responsible for? Not the total 558, but the difference between 558 and the 271.
it'd be 271 plus the 15% contingency. That's the way I would look at it. And then potentially almost half of that gets paid with potentially half of that gets paid with a grant.
But we're not
Eric,
sure about the grant.
No,
Could I add something on the grant? Because tonight at the Lakes and Watershed Commission, Jeremy Belusic presented the county's program on that. They've redone some of the requirements. And I will send you the information for applying. But it's a 50-50 match.
up to 500.
Yes. So that could be quite helpful.
And the grant is for what? Infiltration?
Water quality.
Infiltration, removal of phosphorus and sediments.
If the water, like I mentioned, Eric said, well, if the water went in the Graver Pond, the sediment and phosphorus could be removed also. So what are we gaining?
We're gaining having somebody else pay for it.
Yeah, you're right there.
You're gaining infiltration, Warren, and originally this project was proposed as a way to reduce flows to Graber.
Yeah.
I believe. I was not here.
Well, that is a benefit that we have 10% less volume going in the Graver Pond. Whether that's a problem or not, we're not really sure, but it probably is not a good idea not to have the water go there. We could gain that. But we don't know if that extra 10% was going to cause problems downstream of Graver. That's the issue, right? It may just mean that we got to release water longer from Graver, not necessarily any higher. So what are you looking for tonight?
I asked for a recommendation to approve this project, and that would be conditional on staff working out the details of the cost and ensuring that we take care of any flood rise downstream through
You can't speak.
asking Steve to remodel it. If it's still there, then we would have to go and get an easement from one property potentially, if the city attorney agrees that we need to do that.
So is everybody clear on who's going to pay for what? Is the city, are we looking at, I guess I'm still confused, Eric, how much we're being asked to approve tonight? I guess we really don't know. because we got the cost of the land yet and we got a grant out there.
Right, and this is just an estimate. But for the construction costs, you're looking at $310,000 estimated. And that would be from TIF per Mike Davis.
There's no fees in lieu of money being mentioned as it was last time.
No,
I guess we're looking for someone to want to make a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve this plan with the contingencies that Eric has listed.
I'll second.
So I guess I'm not sure what the contingencies really are. Are you talking about the extra cost that Eric mentioned?
Well, the extra, he's gonna have to put it all together as far as cost and nail all that down before they finance, we can approve TIF expenditure. So I think what Eric really needs is, it's not a matter of where the money's coming from. It's whether or not we approve of this plan and it does what we want it to do. Am I right with that, Eric?
yes, exactly.
Yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, the motion's carried. Next
Okay.
item is Bell Farm. And I gotta leave just for a couple of minutes, okay? Be right back.
Eric, you want to just give us a quick overview of what you're looking for on this?
Certainly. The general implementation plan for Bell Farms went before Plan Commission a week ago, and it went before council last night, and both, Plan Commission recommended and council took their recommendation and approved the GIP, subject to a few requirements. The other thing happening here is an urban service area amendment. You know, for those of you who aren't familiar with what that is, that's the Regional Planning Commission allowing us to expand our sanitary sewer service area. Part of that is a stormwater review. The only thing that's been proposed by the developer in, definitively is 100% infiltration. And I guess I'm asking the commission to weigh in on whether that's enough for you or if you want even more.
Okay.
Bruce Holler is here. I think, let's wait. Well, here's Warren back.
Okay, I'm back.
Warren, I just gave a brief overview of what's going on here.
Okay, very good.
And I think we can let Bruce talk about what he's proposing.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. So Oh, by the way, Warren, nice presentation last night.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah, as Eric had indicated, we're, our next step in this process is going in front of, we're presenting the information to CARP C for the urban service amendment. And as part of that, I want to establish kind of the goals that we're trying to achieve when we're setting for this development with regard to stormwater management. I know the last Water Resources meeting we talked about regarding this project, we kind of went through some of the guidelines of, you know, the ordinance requirements, and throughout the process of, you know, we're maintaining and pushing for exceeding the current city requirements. One of them being 100% infiltration for the average annual, meeting that. And that was some of the information that I had provided Eric with that should be in your packet. It's a little bit unique. What's a little bit unique about that is we're kind of proposing the infiltration practices almost on a site-by-site basis with respect to the different townhomes, estate lots, just home builders putting them in as after they're done constructing their house, and folding that in as all as part of the construction package. But in addition, we'll have the basins adjacent to the wetland right there. We've got a couple of them that will take care of not only sediment or water quality, there'll be some infiltration components of it, and peak control as well. You know, I see that the ordinances are being updated, so we'll comply with what the ordinance is at the time we submit the official stormwater management report. But I think our commitment here is the big one is the 100% infiltration of the average annual. And by moving it up at the source, I think that's an important factor in those systems working and doing the best they can. We do have some type A soils out here, which are hopefully will provide some really good infiltration as well. So I'd like to maintain that and utilize those as well. Yeah, I think we're here just to kind of, you know, so I have some good parameters to go by as we move this along to a final design, make sure that we get everything you guys are looking for. And CARP C has something to look at as well, or knows what the requirements are going to be for their resolution as well.
And you were talking about flood detention for the 200-year storm?
Yes. Yep. 200-year storm and in this case, because of the proximity to the airport, these will have to be dry basins. So we have no standing water. So we got to make sure we get that worked in as well.
If I can chime in here, I'm really excited about the notion of doing things at individual sites, individual homes. And so I think this is an important example because I think that's the only way we're ever going to be successful with infiltration is to catch it at the downspouts and to get infiltration in our lawns and other areas. So the only thing I want to make sure that we're doing right is just to make sure that that gets done. You know,
yeah.
The builders actually follow through with that. But, you know, this is the only way we're going to really be successful. You can't just take water off and then think you can deal with it downstream. You really got to get it at the homes. And it's actually advantageous to homeowners because, you know, it's going to help lawns and all those other things. So, because you know, they got to be concerned about basements too at the same time. But anyway, I think this is an important experiment, and I hope we can, you know, when it goes through, I hope we can do some monitoring along the way to see how that works.
Yeah, I know we had
Ken,
chatted
did
a
you
little
see
bit.
that email from Herb Garn on low impact development and Jim Bachhuber?
Yes.
Did you read it, Eric? That article by EPA on low impact development was pretty good, I thought. Is
Yeah.
this development considered to be a low impact development, you think?
Is that a question for me or Bruce?
Probably you, Eric. Bruce may not be familiar with low impact development. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
think,
think
yeah.
our goal would be to provide some low impact devices, low impact development devices that you are seen in those type of developments, but yeah, whether it is or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is low impact development by my terms. So, I mean, I think this is the way we have to do it. We have to do it at the home level. But you know, it's just the key is to make sure that it actually gets done, that the builders do it correctly. So that's my main concern. But you know, this has been done in other places. In Cross Plains, they did a pretty good job in some homes, though they have some groundwater issues. But anyway, yeah, this is certainly low impact development as a concept, and so the key is to execute it.
Agreed.
Eric, can you forward that email from Herb to Ken and Bruce? Anybody else who might want to say it?
Sure.
The one that Jim referred to, of course, was that study in Cross Plains by USGS, and
Yep.
that's a hard report to read and get a summary. EPA references that one and summarizes it real well.
I think generally they've proposed a lot of those things, Warren. There's
Yeah,
disconnection and distributed
Yep.
facilities. There aren't any grass swales. You know, and I don't, Bruce, have you proposed to do any soil amendments or deep tilling post?
Well, I think that'll be part of a suggestion, or, you know, because we haven't gotten to the point where we've done soils investigations in yet. And my feeling is, and maybe we have to collaborate with you, Ken, is if we do end up having some soils in some of these homes or lots that isn't really favorable, maybe there's some soil conditioning that we can
Absolutely, yeah.
we could do as an alternative.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I think all that's on the table for ways to make this work.
Yeah, I think that's critical. So when, you know, I mean, it's going to be up to the builders, I guess, to in the building process to make sure all that works. But I think we do have to make sure that those soils can actually handle that water coming from downspouts. And it's really low cost to do deep tilling there because you're doing a small area. You just have to get, you know, the path that the water takes. And, you know, this has been done really well in the East Coast. Okay. In Maryland, they're doing this all the time now. So I think this is where we have to go.
If I could, this is Kathleen, I'm the developer. If I could just jump in for a second, I don't want to get away from the technical capabilities that Bruce brings to the table here, but just on the comment on bioswales and different mechanisms like that, we are open to everything. And one of the reasons that we ended up doing the parkland dedication the way we did, where we actually, instead of having parkland dedication being part of where the development is, we wanted to leave every aspect of the green and open space available for stormwater management practices. And we knew that that would not, you know, parkland can't also be stormwater management areas per the city. And so we just, to make that cleaner for both the parks and for us, we took that upper corner of the property and made that parkland dedication so that every single open space here and green space can be a potential part of the overall stormwater management plan. So I just kind of wanted to give you the insight as to where our thoughts are going with that. So although we might not have at the moment laid out where the swales might be, there's a lot of opportunities, and that's why we wanted to keep that separation with the parkland dedication.
That sounds good. I think if you, Bruce, looked at that EPA pamphlet or circular, at the bottom of that, I think they show that University of New Hampshire has a workshop or an online thing for low impact development. It might be worthwhile for ideas to look at that.
Yeah. No, yeah, if Eric, you could send that to me, I'll dig into that.
Will do.
So anyway, Bruce, to know whether the total outflow from this project going in the Graper Pond will be the same as it is right now, or less or more. You're not doing a model for the whole basin, right? For the whole development?
Well, as far as the volume, the infiltration volume, the chart I put together there kind of outlines our goal that we're trying to meet, and then their model, and then shows how our modeling meets that goal.
The modeling for each individual basin.
Yeah, so what we did is, for instance, if you look at that number 7 right there, the green one, you know, there's region 7. It's got 6 devices because there are 6 homes, and we have a device for each lot of a certain area, and each device, you know, controls X volume of water, and you multiply that out by the 6, and you get a total stay on. And then there's a cumulative stay on amount for each drainage area and device. That's that's how we kind of came around to estimating what's needed for each device and drainage area, and how we're going to meet the total. Now the multifamily units that are along Parmenter, we're going to introduce some green roofs and green and blue roofs, and some you know, courtyard planters, and we'll be taking care of the infiltration and all stormwater management requirements on those sites alone. So those won't contribute to the ponds. Those will bypass the discharge from those. Will bypass the ponds and drain into the wetlands, but not before the infiltration and all the water quality and peak control is taken care of.
So Bruce, do you see that you're going to have separate development submittals for the perhaps 3 or 4 sites along Parmenter, and then one for the rest of this?
Yeah, I really haven't thought about that. I mean, we could have the rest of it as one, as a standalone, and then split off the other multifamily ones, or provide a managed stormwater management plan for each SIP, the SIP for each one of those. Yeah. But I think separating them out probably makes the most sense.
What's going to come online first?
Phase 1 will be a mix of both of the multifamily, I believe on the south side of Bellefontaine, and into to the east of Serenby. So we'll put the ponds will go in first, no matter what. So those will be designed for the entire watershed that are contributing to them. So those will be in and established, and then as we develop the different phases and lotting, you know, that's when the infiltration practices come in and get constructed.
Eric, I have a question for you. Later on, we're going to have a discussion on the Graber Pond and the design of the outlet. And MSA is proposing to do a model to the routing the flow through. How are they going to incorporate this into development into that model? Or how are they going to do how are they going to get an inflow in the Graber Pond? With existing conditions, or are they going to try and use this
Well, I
development
think
plan?
they'll have to know a new curve number essentially, you know, even though Bruce will be giving us 200-year rate control, when you send that out of the ponds and towards Graber, you know, it's not a rate control issue at Graber, it's more of a volume control.
Volume control, right?
So we get 100% infiltration for a 1 or a 2 year storm, but how much extra volume are we getting in a 50-year or 100-year storm, and how does that get routed through Graber? I think that's what MSA is going to have to figure out more, and
That's what I wondered.
they can.
This looks pretty complex to be able to do that.
Well, I don't know if it's that complex. I mean, there'll have to be some assumptions made, certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, if we get far enough along, we can just, if we want to, or if they want to incorporate our model into what they're doing, you know, that's a possibility too. You know, then you're routing, you're not, you know, you can, you know, the timing and the routing can become more realistic.
When do you think you'll be at that point, Bruce?
Oh, good question. What's the time frame on the Graber Pond study?
2 years late.
This decade. I don't know. I guess we're going to probably let a contractor talk about it in about a half an hour or 15 minutes. So then you're saying, Bruce, that you're going to have a model for the whole development or piecemeal models?
Oh, we'll have a model for the full development, because I want to make sure, we got to make sure that that, you know, our ponds are sized properly. And so I think we can be far enough along, you know, sometime next, you know, by the end of the year for sure. I would like to think we've got a good handle on what what this model is going to be like.
Well, it sure makes sense to incorporate this development into our outlet structure for Graber Pond. I mean, it's the inflow going into it. So that would, if you're done by the end of the year, that would make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's probably quick enough, Bruce. MSA will have to go back to stormwater utility next month to get the funding approved, assuming this committee approves the concept.
Yeah. So what are we looking for tonight, Eric?
If you guys are satisfied with what Bruce has proposed, or if you want to add additional conditions, such as deep tilling or something else, and then make that recommendation to council.
Well, it'd be nice to get deep tilling, you know, from where the roof drainage is. And so is that going to be possible? I mean, you don't need to deep till all the green space, but you know, it's really important to catch that water coming down the downspouts. So,
Mm-hmm.
And if the soils are, you know, really good soils, you don't need to do anything. But, you know, I think that's always been our gap, is that we plan these things ahead of time, but then the developer comes in and we don't have any plan at the individual building scale, you know what I mean? You know,
Mhm.
individual homes, we've never worried about that, but really catching that downspout water is doable. It's not that expensive, so we got to figure out how to do that.
Yeah,
So
I
you
think-
want to make a motion, Ken, with that included?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, what's the logistics? I realize, you know, builders come in, I don't know enough about this whole process in terms of the building, but how many different builders are going to be involved in building homes on this? And is it going to be possible to ensure that something be done at downspouts? I mean, that, you know, it's not that hard to do, but they have to be located, you know, they have to connect to the downspouts, right? You have to, you know, it depends on what the buildings look like.
There's
So-
a chance that we would be working with a handful of different builders just based on the phasing and the timeframes. And we can, you know, we will have an agreement, a contract with each builder about the general expectations of everything going on. And I've seen some of these agreements before where they work that right into the equation. So we can have it be part of the contract with the builder, and then we can figure out a system on the back end, Ken, where either, you know, someone from your staff, or, you know, the student, if we get the students involved in somehow where they maybe we can figure out some sort of like inspection to make sure it's done the way that it said it was going to be
Okay.
done.
Well, that-
But the builder agreements, I think, are a perfect place to mandate that, you know, things have to be done at a certain level related to stormwater management.
Okay, this is a really important innovation that we have to get in place, and I'm excited that we have somebody who's gonna take this on. So, you know, let's go with it.
You want to make a motion then saying to incorporate deep tilling, Ken? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm just saying that there be requirements on builders,
Yeah.
really important. And it's not an expensive thing. It's just, you know, it's not a lot of deep tilling. There are not that many downspouts at these houses, right? So I think, you know, we need to, I mean, it's really great that that's in the plan. We got to make sure that happens.
So Eric, what kind of motion are we looking forward to tonight?
I just want to add one thing. I think what we need to spell this out in the developer's agreement between the city and the developer. And, you know, that may include, or it'll have to include certification practices on, you know, if not every site, some serious
Yeah.
proportion of the sites.
Mhm.
That's all I wanted to say, Warren. Just clear that up.
Okay, so what kind of motion are we looking for tonight then?
You accept the plan commission's recommendations and add in deep tilling practices and some kind of controls placed in the developer's agreement and covenants and things like that to make sure all of this actually happens as planned.
Eric, could I just make a comment that if we put the deep tilling, that it's soil dependent, meaning if the soils are already good, we don't have to do the deep tilling, so that it's based on soils.
Yeah, as
Sure,
long as there's no
sure.
damage done during the construction, that would be the only thing that worried me. The soils could be good, but you just have to make sure that you know, that when the houses are built, they're not compacting those soils.
Good point.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll make that motion that you spelled out, Eric. Do we have to include anything about coordinating the miles from Bruce to MSA?
Not in a motion, I don't think.
Okay,
We know where Bruce works.
okay.
You know where to find me. Yep.
Yeah. So do we have a second for the motion?
I'll second. So,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? The motion's carried.
Thank you.
Next item, Warren, is MSA's contract amendment for Graver Pond. I want to say a couple things and then I'll turn it over to Jeff Felland. We asked them to come back, look at changing the outlet elevation, look at the downstream conveyances, and then look at these upstream projects that we're aware of. The two being the Tribeca diversion and this Bell Farms project. I talked to Jeff later on and you know, we're trying to figure out where we should stop their work because you guys are aware, I'm gonna try to send out an RFP for another project downstream of this in Misty Valley, which will address some of the concerns of the downstream folks. And we decided to kind of stop MSA's formal design to include culverts beneath Misty Valley Road, basically ensuring we have enough conveyance under that road so that we're not flooding anybody out who's just upstream of Misty Valley Road. And then the remainder of any formal design would be done under another contract as part of that Misty Valley project. So Jeff, if you're here, please take it away.
Thanks, Eric. Good evening, everyone. I don't know that there's a ton to get through after Eric's introduction. I think the couple of big things that are included in this amendment that came out of that September 15th meeting. For those that were around for that meeting, we had presented some results based on having the pond outlet set at 904. The result of that meeting was that we would lower that outlet someplace below 904, closer to 902, but no lower than 902, and incorporate an adjustable configuration to it. So that's a major change from the previous efforts that were presented back in September. The other one, another major change is just, as Eric alluded to, incorporating a couple of new areas into the model for the pond. One being the Bell Farms development that we heard about previously, and the impacts of that on the Graver Pond watershed and outlet structures and flow volumes. The other one is the Tribeca diversion project. This new modeling effort for this outlet design would incorporate that change. As I understand, there'll be some water routed potentially away from Graver Pond. So we'd want to account for those changes. And then the third big change that came about in this process based on the September meeting was extending the extents to include designing improvements for the Misty Valley Road culvert. So those are kind of the three major changes from the previous efforts back in September. As Eric alluded to, there'll be some discussion about some measures put in place that could handle, that could facilitate bypassing the Misty Valley stormwater management ponds during periods of high flow and when Graver has to be brought down. And those would be recommendations versus actual design and construction plans as part of this project. So that in the event that any Misty Valley stormwater basin improvements are delayed or opted to not be done, there'd be a way to facilitate the movement of water through that system so that we're not inundating that area. But it sounds like those may not come into play if the RFP Eric mentioned comes out and that separate project comes online. I can answer any questions if folks have them.
I was a little confused about what the cost would be.
Right, so Amendment 8 had a budget in there for some of these things, including permitting and bidding. And so what we did is we came up with a cost to do this work. And then we looked back at that Amendment 8 budget as to what was not done in the budget that was not used, and basically subtracted that balance from our estimated cost to do this work. Obviously, there's been no bidding. There's been a little bit of permitting effort put forth, but that still remains to be done.
So what would the additional cost be total?
After the reduction from the Amendment 8 balance, it'd be 16,000, approximately $16,065.
Okay, so that's the amendment would add on 16,065. Okay. I didn't follow the change down below, but that's fine. So what we're looking for tonight, Eric?
A recommendation to Stormwater Utility Board that you're okay with this amendment for services. There-
Did someone
There's
make
a
a motion?
hand up, Warren. I don't know if you want to allow the public to speak.
Oh, sure.
Beth? Go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you so much. I'm kind of joining the party a little late, but I'm wondering if this seems like a significant amount of money for the city to be spending. And I understand that the concerns from the Friends of Pheasant Branch have a lot to do with the water flowing through and maintaining because they're getting invasive species and things from a downflow from Graber Pond. I'm wondering if, I know that some changes need to be made to prevent homes from flooding, but has any thought been put into diverting some of this funds into improving the actual conservancy so that we don't have so much in terms of invasive species, and actually being able to maintain Graber Pond as a kettle pond the way it was originally intended? I guess I'm concerned about the fact that it seems like Graber Pond Conservancy really does not get any attention whatsoever. And some of the concerns about the drainage downstream across Misty Valley and into the Pheasant Branch Conservancy, I think are really well founded. But some of those could be avoided. I don't know if it would be less expensive, but to me, it seems like it would be less expensive if it was done in a way where we could improve the conservancy, the Graber Pond Conservancy, as well as deal with the potential for excess water in the pond.
Warren, if
Yeah,
I could step in.
yeah, go ahead.
Beth, maybe you and I can have a discussion offline. There have been wide-ranging and numerous discussions about all these things, and I can probably do a pretty good job of explaining it to you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for the comments, Beth.
Thank you.
You can find my email or phone number on the city's website.
Okay, thanks, Eric.
Yep.
So I'm looking for a motion
I'll recommend approval to stormwater utility.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, folks.
Okay, Warren, stormwater management ordinance update, or do you want to move to the items for December?
Well, we should at least mention what we're going to do on the stormwater management. I talked to Eric this afternoon, and I think we did before when we developed it with Gary. We kind of went through line by line and made suggestions. So, and Dane County hasn't finalized theirs yet, have they?
I think they have.
Do we have their input on that?
I had sent that to you guys. Yes, my understanding was that was the final draft that was going to be approved a couple weeks ago, maybe by now. But I can make sure nothing's changed and send it out again. Yeah, I didn't think we were done with this by any stretch. I just put it on the agenda if anybody wanted to comment tonight. I've had conversation with Warren. Caroline Berger submitted some pretty decent comments. Ken has weighed in on a few things.
Did we get any comments from Jim? We didn't, did we?
I don't think we have, no.
No. So does anybody want to talk a little bit about it tonight, or should we just put it on the agenda for a future meeting when we have more time and go through it on a more detailed basis? I think the main things one of the things that we're looking at, or some of the things we're looking at, is increasing the storm frequency from 100 to possibly 200, changing, adjusting the rainfall to like we use for the floodplain study, possibly looking at a different year of instead of 1981 for infiltration. And I think Jim had some, I'm not sure, I can't remember that. What was your suggestions, Ken?
Ken has left the building.
He's gone, he fell asleep.
Flipping his
Feedback.
record over.
Yeah.
What was your question, Warren?
We're talking about, I just named some things that we had expected to possibly make some changes to, and I don't know what suggestions you might have and how you want it.
Yeah, I haven't really thought through this well enough yet, so.
Okay, so why don't we put it on the agenda, future meeting?
Okay, Warren.
Okay,
I'll try to give you a little more structure also.
okay, very good. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? If not, I guess we could go to the next item, which is just possible agenda items for future meetings. I noticed some other committees had that and we never had that, but it might be a good idea if people have ideas they want to talk about to possibly put it on the agenda for a future meeting. I know, Ken, you talked about a groundwater study.
Yeah, just one comment on that. A colleague of mine in civil engineering and I have applied for a research grant to look at this groundwater flooding thing. And so I think if we get that, that's going to provide a lot of information about, what the problem is, what's the magnitude of the problem, and how we might approach it. I mean, I think the problem right now is we just don't know enough about where groundwater is any place, right? You don't know it until you get it in your basement. And so but there's no question that groundwater is rising all over the world in a lot of places, and certainly here in Wisconsin. So I think this is something we're gonna have to look at in the future, but I think we have to get some data.
Well, we don't have much information on the Bell Farm area, what the groundwater table might look like, and that could be important though.
Yeah, no, I think maybe we need to be proactive on some of these things. It's not all that hard to put an observation, a shallow observation well in, right? So maybe we need to be doing some of that ourselves before we make some of these other decisions. You know, that this could be a really serious problem. And we already have places here in Wisconsin where they're pumping constantly to keep the groundwater at bay, you know, from basements. And, you know, we don't want to be building houses where they're going to have sumps running constantly because of high groundwater.
So we're going to get more infiltration at Bell Farms, but we don't necessarily know if the groundwater movement is towards Graber Pond or towards Lake Mendoza or Conservancy.
No, right. We don't know. There's a lot we don't know about groundwater. So, you know, I just think we've got to get serious about this before it becomes a really big issue. Maybe the one thing we could do is just do a survey of homeowners in Middleton to find out if anybody's observed, more sump pump activity. It might be a start. You know, that's easy data to get. People probably know that, right? If they, if their sump pumps are running a lot more, they probably are aware of that.
We should not discuss these things too much because this wasn't on the
Oh,
agenda.
it's not on the agenda. Okay, yeah, okay.
We're talking about future.
Right.
I guess we could put it on the agenda for a future time.
There's a neighborhood on the west side of town, Hidden Oaks, and there's some drainage discussions about that. Dane County has been monitoring groundwater, Ken, and I just received their latest set of data.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen that.
I'll send that to the group just so you're aware of it.
Who's the key? Who are you contacting with their?
Matt Dybel.
Oh, Dybel, okay, good. Good.
And I also they had polled residents last year, and I just sent out a letter 2 days ago to residents.
Oh, that's great. Okay, yeah.
Sump
Yeah,
pump
okay.
usage.
Yeah, I've been pushing this for a while, and I'm glad to see something's happening.
Okay, let's put it on the agenda for a future meeting then. The next meeting. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Got a second? I'll second it. We're adjourned.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.